Yard Act, Where's My Utopia album review. Let's chat about it. Hey friends, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning, here tonight to chat about this latest album, the second album from British art punk and post-punk act Yard Act. They've been at it for a few years now, and they've been really picking up speed in the sort of artsy, weirdo punk community, gaining a lot of traction over the last few years, and I totally see why. Their debut EP, the Dark Days EP, I really enjoyed quite a bit. I thought this was a just very interesting old school approach to post-punk and art punk. I did enjoy the very overly verbose lyrics of James Smith and the band's humor as a whole, kind of staring in the face of a very grim reality, was something that I was really refreshed by. I was very interested to hear some more. Now, with their full-length debut album, The Overload, this is an album that I have a lot of really strong feelings on. I mean, it's okay overall. The album's fine, but, I think I gave it like a light 7 at the time, but in the last few years, I kind of found myself not coming back to it. While the album had a really strong base to it, I really thought the band could just push themselves a lot further, and I wanted to see what they could do in the future. Now, ever since, I will say this, my thoughts on the band have changed quite a bit, and I did allude to this in my albums I was really looking forward to for April and May a couple of months back. My thoughts on the band have really changed over the last year or so, mostly because I saw the band live around this time, about 6 months ago, I want to say, and they absolutely blew my mind. I thought they were one of the better live acts that I saw at the festival that I was at. And almost as importantly, leading up to this album, I thought the band was just really pushing out constantly very interesting, different singles that showed them having a lot more personality this time around. And you know what? The singles leading up to this thing, like I said, they were just fantastic. Let's chat about this thing. This album starts off with an illusion, and it is a pretty oddball start to say the least. I love the sampling and the way that this track just kind of dangerously slinks along super slow, but I think the real story is here, that they sound like an entirely new band. I love the horns that pop in and give this a little bit of color. James Smith's lyrics, once again, overly verbose, but really enjoyable. Everything about this just makes me smile. It's a lot, even though this isn't the heaviest track here, but let me tell you, Yard Act has layers, like an ogre or an onion. It's a strange, fluid tune that just has a ton of personality. We also have We Make Hits, which I think was the first single I heard on this project, and instantly I gravitated towards it. It is just so lush and colorful and genuinely weird. It's got like these weird self-referential lyrics and just an off-kilter groove. Everything about this is so unique. It's punchy as hell. Watch that. It's punchy as hell. It's got a great dance groove as well. All of that done without, them dropping their eccentricities. This track is a blast. The wild drum fills, the vast array of synths, and this inescapable, very, really instantaneous and really memorable hook. It's a great single. Then we have Down by the Stream, and Yard Act continue to really throw a lot at us. This is a slick track with a really off-kilter bass groove once again. This track doesn't sound like it knows what it wants to be, but I'm not going to get in its way. The sampling is really well done, and I once again really love just the very verbose, personality-filled performances. It gives this already very entertaining track a lot more life. And the final vicious, much darker and direct moments are really entertaining as well. This track is just great. And Dream Job, I just have the biggest smile on my face whenever this track is on. This is a wildly colorful art punk jam with, serious nods to dance punk. I mean, that groove. This track is just full of freaky life, and I love the chorus as well. The group chorus here, it hits hard. It's an absolute blast of a tune. My biggest issue with it is I just wish it was a little bit longer. That's how good it is, but it is a really great single. If you haven't caught on by now, I really love this record. It is a really great offering in art punk. Now, I will say this, there are one or two really sore thumbs here. Like the Undertow, for example. This is a weird one just because there's a lot going on this track, but none of it really grabs me. Like the instrumental here, it's so busy, but like too busy to the point where nothing stands out about it. From a distance also, this sounds like Yard Act to a T, but when you dive a little deeper, I feel like they don't know what the hell they're doing. It's just not as exciting as other moments here, and lyrically, I'm just not as captivated. And Grifter's Grief, I think, is the worst track here, and leading up to this track, in the sense of the album, it's one of the more whimsical tracks here, a lot of synth work. And it did catch me off guard, and I thought it was something interesting and new, but honestly, I think it's a little more misguided than anything, and I think it's the worst track here. I mean, I was really excited to hear that jittery, upbeat punk riff in the back, but they don't do anything with it. Somehow, it's the least urgent track here, and the kids' vocals that pop in for this chorus, I just didn't need it. Thankfully, though, outside of that, Yard Act bring the heat and cement themselves as the next big thing in post-punk and art punk, I feel like. Fizzy Fish, I love the track. I mean, I feel like I've been using the term weirdo jam a lot, but that's what that is. I mean, the bizarre pop culture references. This track as a whole is freaking weird. It's so off-kilter, and the lyrical performance is one of the most direct and intense here. All alongside of a very freakish hook once again, if you even want to call it a hook. I mean, I'm having an all-out blast with this album. Also, I really love Petroleum. I think that over time it's actually grown on me to the point where I think it's the best single here. I love the subdued, impeccably hip verses that pick up just enough for this hook. It's harmonious and oddly joyous, but it's also, once again, got a weirdo dance groove thrown in. There's a lot going on this album. So much personality, so much colorful personality without dropping the band's eccentricities or their poignancy. It's one of the best rock singles I've heard all year, and the final freak-out moments here are great. Also really love When the Laughter Stops featuring Katie J. Pearson. I mean, I hate to just keep harping on these grooves, but they're really good. And this one, it's no different. I actually really love the urgency to this track, and Katie J. Pearson's vocals on this track are actually just enough to bring it together, especially on that very lively hook that we get. It's flashy and fun, but much like the rest of this album, it's also very timely. Now, Blackpool Illuminations, it's not going to be for everybody. I mean, not everybody's going to be interested in this very direct, very autobiographical at points, 7-minute track from the band. And it is the most narrative-driven. James Smith is absolutely the star here. And it's a lengthy, wordy jam with a lot going on, but I actually think the way that this track progresses and builds is really classy. And as this track rolls on, it just becomes more gritty and jazzy. Yeah, Yard Act actually have some really unique ideas here. Also, the conclusion of this track, with the conclusion that Utopia doesn't exist, is a pretty crushing note to end on. And A Vineyard for the North, which ends off this album, I have a lot of the same feelings on because it's a very similar track. It's a lot darker and grittier than what this album has been. It's much more intense and focused. It's the grim reality that has kind of, been with us since the start of this album, even though we didn't know it. I love the pulsating beat that we get here, and James's performance once again, which by the end of it comes off like a mantra. They took a lot of risks on this album, and I commend them for it because I always love to see an artist take risks and push their sound further. It's just not always the prettiest thing to see at first. However, this is a new band entirely, I feel like, from this album, and much more so now. I get the hype because this thing is timely and poignant, but it's also fun and super catchy, and Yard Act are onto something. The humor here, the personality here, the great production, and the risks that pay off make this, I think, a must listen. I'm feeling a decent 8 on this project, but let me know what you all think down below. If you like the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, friends.